Hi everyone, I'm Katrina James. I'm a counsellor from Reframe Counselling. Today I'm on the Prosperity Show, which is so exciting. Lots of interesting things for you to hear today and learn. We'll be touching on many different topics, and you'll want to listen to the advice about what migrants should be doing and when they should maybe come and talk to a professional like me.
Hello to all our wonderful viewers. Welcome back to yet another exciting episode of the Online Prosperity Show, where we bring you inspiring stories and valuable insights to help you thrive in your personal and professional journey. I'm your host, Prosper Taruvinga, and today's episode promises to be one for the books. And I'm not saying that lightly because it's going to be a reframe. Now, we've got the incredible Katrina James in the studio today, a counselor with a knack for unlocking emotional barriers and helping people live their best lives. Now, Katrina, how are you doing today?
I'm fantastic, Prosper. What a great way to kick off the year. It's very early, 2024. If you're watching this in replay, who knows when it is, but I hope it's just as great as what it started.
Absolutely. Well, there's always, you always want the marching drums, the people that introduce the team, the mayor, and everybody else to be so full of energy. And I think this show is going to be one that leads all of the other episodes to come. So I can't wait to jump into what we've got in store, Katrina, because you help skilled migrants in overcoming emotional barriers that may either block their progress or their career and also their personal life. Now, that's a little bit close to home. You know where I'm from, Katrina?
Not exactly sure, Prosper, but I'm definitely excited to find out a little bit more about you too.
Absolutely. I was born in Zimbabwe. Do you know where that is?
I do, yeah. Neighbors with South Africa.
Absolutely. I was going to pull out the map and everything else, but you seem like you're well
Yeah.
versed with that. So that really puts you in a strategic position to work with skilled migrants. I might not be a perfect fit because the whole skilled part there, I did not sit there. But I digress. This is not about me. I want you to get ready to be inspired and informed because I think this is going to be a show to remember. Now, Katrina, we could go on and on, talk about your accolades and your prowess in geography, which is good, by the way. Tell us a little bit about what actually inspired you to become a counselor and especially specializing with migrants on their journey.
Yeah, look, I have to start and just say, Prosper, I love people. I think people are
I
we're
love
just
you
so
too.
fascinating. Oh, thank you. That's so sweet. I appreciate that. We're just these fascinating, beautiful creatures who, we just all want to be loved and we want, things to be easy but, we all want to act tough at the same time and pretend that we don't really need those things, right? But we do. And I just see this in people. And the reason why I specifically work with migrant professionals, skilled migrants, is that I've just always seen it as this area where I guess I'd call it maybe some skills wastage that I see with people. They have amazing skills, but for whatever reason, and often it's a reason that's attached emotionally, they're not progressing because maybe they've got some belief about where they should be, or maybe it actually is something from when they grew up. If they grew up in a country that doesn't, that has a completely different system to Australia, it's really difficult to navigate. There's migration is one thing, but then navigating a country, it's a whole other different thing. So you come from this pressure of migrating and going through the process, which often can be years long to get the visa and everything sorted. And then you come to Australia and then you think, okay, great, I've got it, I'm here. But that's just the beginning of another journey, another wonderful journey. But it's something that I see is really under-resourced. It's not supported. It's sort of like, thanks very much, you paid your money. Now, you're so lucky to be here, even though it came with a price tag. And you're on your own. Figure it out.
Mm.
And I see that as as a missed opportunity. You know, people need to be supported, and there should migration is so hard. It's so freaking hard, and it's not my story, but I've seen so many people do it, and I think, wow, why would you do this by yourself? You know, get some support. Let me help you. And that's why I love working in that area with people who've got so much to teach me, you know, much smarter people than me, but people who, you know, just need that. It's often only a little bit of support, just a little lift. And then people go, whoo, off they fly. It's amazing to watch. I love it.
Absolutely. Well, I think what you're doing is remarkable. And having come into the country myself with nothing but a backpack full of hopes and dreams, and just arriving here and having to start from scratch, that's a lot of work. So, what is the sort of type of people that you end up working with, and what sort of skill set would they have come to Australia with?
So people are highly skilled because that's the way the visa system works in Australia. You know, there's a whole process that people have to go through. So it can be quite tough and quite selective, which causes its own problem because then people get jobs and they kind of aren't used to not being the best at their job anymore, you know? And then you can come in and so I'm really helping people. They've probably been in Australia for a couple of years and then they realize that things aren't great, you know, or they're not getting where they want to go. And so something has to change. And so people could be coming, they mostly come and talk about jobs or they talk about their relationship that's not working, you know, and then we do a little bit of digging, not too much, but it actually doesn't take too much. We talk a little bit about other things and then we find this whole treasure trove of other stuff that's going on, you know, beliefs that don't help you, things that you've carried on from your culture, and not just from a country culture, from a family culture, or just from your friends, or stories that you've heard from, you know, your sisters, brothers, mates, uncle that came to Australia and gives and then sends these messages back home about, you know, this is what's happening and it's going to be bad and this is terrible and it's all awful and you're never going to succeed here. And people carry those stories with them, and it's really damaging at all levels. And so yeah, I work with people who get to a point where they're like, okay, I didn't migrate to feel worse than what I actually felt in my home country, and so something's got to give, and let's see what's going on. And so yeah, I just help people to explore it. Let's have a look, let's see what it's like. That little rock in your shoe, you know, it's only small but it's really damn annoying, right? And so that's what I help people with. I'll help them find that little rock and stop for long enough to actually take it out.
Absolutely. I quite like, how you're positioning this, because so many, even myself included, when we obviously come to a country, it's not just to see the lights, it's for the betterment of our families and generations to come. And that in and of itself creates an unspoken about burden, which that person now needs to look after whatever they've created here, and also what they have left back home. Now,
Yeah.
with that sort of, you know, sort of grappling with emotions and anxiety, how is it that you then sort of assist them? Because some of them would probably be really stuck in their ways because they don't want to let everybody else down, because half of the time
Yeah.
these people would have done quite a lot to help them
Yeah.
come overseas.
Absolutely. And that's a big difficulty. Something I see is, you know, people feel like they can't talk to people at home because then it will be viewed as like, why are you complaining? You've moved to Australia. Like, you know, I'm not going to listen to you. And then there's no one in Australia to talk to. And so often it's a place of just having someone to speak to that has, like, you know, I don't have any attachment. It's whatever the outcome is for the person that I'm seeing. And so just having that sounding board is very helpful for people. You know, I'm not here to sort out people's problems or to fix them, but I'm here to guide people and to help and to kind of listen And sometimes I'll say, like, oh, you've spoken about that thing maybe 3 or 4 times now. I wonder do you think maybe that's something? Maybe we should have a look at it. Or, like, oh, yeah, that's what you said last time. I'm starting to pick up a pattern here. And it's just really reflecting back to people what I hear them say, and not always what I hear them say, but what they don't say.
Mm.
And that is also just as vital to say, look, oh, I know you haven't actually said this, but what do you think about X, Y, and Z? And people can never say, yeah, you've hit it, or they say, no, 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 it's not that at all. And even the not that at all helps them to figure out what it is.
Quite like that, because so many people, if we can't see the air that we breathe, and neither can fish
Yeah,
see the water
yeah,
that we swim in. And if
yeah,
you're stuck in maybe your own community, stuck in your WhatsApp groups from back home, and everybody else just tagging on to you, you obviously start losing focus on
exactly.
best of all the work that you're supposed to be doing, and it all just becomes like a downward spiral going there. But for you, it didn't start off like this. Your entry into the show was, I love people. And that really sort of got me to attach how you were once a photographer and taking candid pictures of people. What was it like then for you in those times?
Yeah, well, it was wonderful. So my first career, I studied photography. I worked as a photographer for about 15 years or so. It was quite a long time. I've traveled the world. I've been to just amazing places. And the thing about photography is that it got me into all of these spaces that I would never go to. I've lived in Germany for some time, and somehow I managed to get myself a job as the photographer for the Australian Embassy in Berlin. And that saw me I went to the New Zealand ambassador's house for dinner, like his personal residence I went to. And how would I ever meet this guy? And let alone meet him and him invite me over for dinner. It was never going to happen, And so I got into these spaces that were incredible. But really, at the end of it, I just saw that people are the same. I'd be in Berlin and I could be in the residence place of the ambassador's residence. And then I could be at a party that was, techno and drum and bass and completely different crowds. I could do that on the same night, right? And the people, ultimately, they were the same. They just wanted to have a nice time. They wanted to be acknowledged. They wanted to be seen. That was it.
Absolutely. Kannst du Deutsch sprechen, oder?
Sorry.
Kannst du Deutsch sprechen?
Ja, ja, ich spreche Deutsch. Können wir Deutsch reden?
Aber ich, ich, ich kann ein bisschen Deutsch, aber,
Ja, ich auch.
aber ich habe alles vergessen.
Ja, ich auch. Es ist wie sagt man, Shame, weil alles mein Deutsch ist fast ist kaputt. Ja. Ich habe niemanden mit Deutsch gesprochen hier. There's no one here to speak German with. And look, it's not the most useful language, it's kind of
Well,
just in Germany and that's it.
well, we
So,
just
yeah,
we just connected on a bit of German that we have, and now this really opens up a whole Pandora, of why this is relevant and how it actually makes sense. I mean, obviously, while you're taking photographs, like you say, it doesn't matter whether the person is a big shot or somebody is just somebody who's just having a good time. We're all people. We're all seeking that,
yeah,
significance in and of ourselves. And that is just human nature all encompassed, and you managed to capture that. and
yeah,
and I would imagine with a photograph is taking a candid moment, freezing it in time and handing it back to the person that, hey, this is what you look like before and this is who you can be. Because when you can
yeah.
tell somebody and get them to pose, they literally can be somebody they don't think they can.
Yeah, it's so true. It's so true. And I think it probably maybe helped me a little bit more because I really understand the difference between literally tenths of a second. Like you can look one way and a tenth of a second later, you can look a different way. And the way you pose people is so powerful. And I even remember things like when I was working for the embassy, you know, they actually would have like earpieces so that they were translating English for the different diplomats and things. And they would always want a photograph that didn't show the earpiece because they didn't, you know, want people to actually know that. And it wasn't until then that I thought about it. I'm like, of course they would have an earpiece. Like this guy's or woman isn't going to speak 16 different languages. They need it to be translated. But it was amazing. They didn't want to show that in the photo. It was like, no, we can't show the earpiece.
Absolutely. But what they showed was a universal language, which is themselves presenting themselves in their confidence and everything else. And you managed to bring
So
that out of
true.
them.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's awesome. And I think it's probably not also afterwards, you know, when I look back at photos now, 10, 15 years later, that you really even appreciate them more and you can see how things have changed. But it is pretty incredible. It's almost like stealing time in some way, you know, like that's incredible. And if we start talking about it, this will be a whole other show. So, but it's amazing.
I can imagine because half of what we do, like you're saying, you're only looking at it in retrospect. I think it was Steve Jobs that mentioned you cannot connect the dots looking forwards, but you could always connect the dots looking backwards. And
Yeah.
you've now
It's
put
one of my favorite quotes, Prosper. How did you know? That's why I just pulled that face because I was like, that's like the statement to live and die by. I love that. It has kept me going through life. Just thinking, I don't know how this is going to turn out. I don't know, but I know it's going to connect because if I look back now, everything connects. Everything makes perfect sense. So you just got to believe it.
absolutely. Well, you being in Germany at that particular time and that little, episode of ours speaking in Germany, maybe that's all that was needed for you to go through that so that we can
Yeah.
experience that connecting moment. And like you said, humans are so diverse in who they
Yeah.
are and whatever their skill set. And it's all just putting together your past experiences and delivering it to you so that you're relevant in that particular instance. And you went on and created your own, business now, and you called it Reframe. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
I really wanted us
Yeah.
take a snapshot of that and why that's particularly important.
Yeah, so it's a nod to my previous career as a photographer and reframing. I have to credit photography. It taught me to see the world. And when I decided to study counseling, it to me it didn't feel like it. Obviously, it's very different, but it's not different. And the way that you have to view things. So often I would turn up to an event and there'd be more photographers than there was people, and I'd have to get a different picture to those 9 other photographers. And so I learned this value of reframing and going, okay, if I just take it, and wasn't huge. It was just maybe going down a little or going to the left or the right, or it just enough to make it a different image. And also it blows my mind that you can have 10 photographers at an event and you'll get 10 different photographs. Like that's pretty cool.
Well, at the end of the day, no two fingers on the same hand are of the same height. So maybe the other finger could not reach the trigger
Yeah.
enough. And the photo came out a little bit less zoomed and things of that nature. But you
Yeah.
you had
Yeah.
you had your own experience living in other countries and having to negotiate and navigate, first of all, a different language altogether and different setups, and also people that are in positions like diplomats, they are next to like the president or the prime minister. You just don't reach places like that. You have to have so much clearance and things of that nature for you to be able to arrive that. Now, how did you personally manage to then navigate all of that and still come out on top, of all the other photographers that would have had an opportunity that you had?
It's such a great question. I love this question. It's so good. And you know what? I was never caught up with all that other stuff, with being worried about like what I needed to get or who I needed to speak. I wasn't worried about that. Like I just knew I could take photos. And so particularly when I was in Germany, it was like, okay, what have I got? You know, and look, I've got a lot of privilege that a lot of people, other people don't have. I do speak English, and I'm, you know, a white woman, and so things are different just from the start. But other than that, like literally, do you know how I got the job at the embassy? I happened to go to a networking event. I was sitting next to the ambassador to Australia. And I know that sounds really fancy, but it really, it wasn't. It was just like this, an event. And he says to me in Berlin, which is like the creative mecca of the world, right? He says to me, "Oh, it's so nice to meet a creative person." And I
Wow.
was like, sorry, what? Like, if you just went out in the street, every second person will tell you they're a photographer. It literally was the right place, right time. And also thinking, yes, in my world, it's the creative mecca, but in his world, it's not. He's a politician. He's not going out to Berlin for the creativeness. He's there because he's a politician, and that's where he got. And I just tapped into that. It literally was like, what have I got? I'm Australian. I can take photos. And I found somebody who was running an event for Australians. They were importing wine, Australian wine. And I said, hey, do you want some help? And literally that's how it happened.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Because so many people would wait until they have been tapped on the shoulder. Hey, could you
Yeah.
come over? And then they'll start asking, how much are you going to pay me? But you showed
Yeah.
up to the event, and
Yeah.
unbeknownst to you, you were sitting next to the president of the world, or
Yeah.
in your world, the person that then elevated you to
Yeah.
the world, so to speak. So what is it about being spontaneous, especially in places where you've got nothing to lose, that a lot of migrants
Yeah.
don't seem to maybe take on all of these other opportunities? Do you think it's because they
Yeah.
know that these positions exist, or are they just too focused on whatever they're going through, the anxiety and everything else that you then help them, to overcome?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of kind of all those things that you were speaking about. It's tricky because like when I talk about that story, like I didn't have anyone depending on me. You know, I was single. I really could take a lot more risk, and so you can't always compare that situation to somebody else. But I think the thing is that you said this, you know, just waiting for to be tapped on the shoulder. And I see this also with people wanting promotions. They're kind of thinking, oh, my work will just get recognized. And it doesn't work like that in Australia. If you want something, you've got to let it be known. You have to let it be known. And I'm not saying that you have to go up and do a speech and be super confident, but just enough to have that conversation with your boss or your manager to say, hey, this is what I want. Can we make a little bit of a plan? And just back yourself. I swear that is the thing that gets me through. And maybe it's naivety sometimes. I'm just like, this is what I can do. Like, do you want it? And if they don't want it, I don't get sad. I'm just like, okay, they didn't want it. Let me go knock. Like, I'm not knocking on the doors that are locked. I'm going to knock on the ones that open for me,
Mm.
right? Make it easy for yourself.
I love that. I live by, you know how you live by the connecting the dots statement. I live
Yeah,
by the statement that just do it, get yourself out there. One day you'll have a good story to tell. Have you ever noticed that half of the things that we do out of a whim, or had you not showed up at that event, you wouldn't have gotten that compliment that then would have led to certain
yeah,
things of that nature. But now you use that strategy, right? You
yeah,
compliments instead of giving people business cards, in order for you to get into, whatever it is that you want. Tell us Is that something that you've now adopted
Yes,
yourself?
I'm so glad you mentioned this because something I prepared earlier is you're absolutely right. I don't call them business cards. I have compliments, and I ask people, "Would you like a compliment?" And no one has ever said no. And then I say to them, "Just pick one." And so we can do the digital version of it. So I'm just going to shuffle them, and you tell me when to stop.
Stop.
Oh, you you make the world a better place. Where is it? Here.
Ooh, wow.
They're all different, Prosper. So that was the one you were meant to get because they're all different. There's look, or maybe you were meant to get this one. You look like where's the camera?
You look
You
like you
look like you read it.
you look like
You
you
look
belong
like
on
you
the cover
belong
of
in
a
the paper.
magazine. What? That is
And they're
such
all they're
a
all different. I'll show you. Oh, this one's one of my favorites. Here we go. If you were a banana, I'd buy a bunch.
a whole lot of that. Wow. And just tell me how that sort of because that's different. That's unique. It's a really good icebreaker. And I can imagine if you just are arriving in a country and you've got those cards with you and you start, talking, I believe you would open up a whole load of conversations. Then yeah, I'm an engineer and that's all I do. I came in the country 3 years ago, and I think that's just flat and boring.
Yeah, yeah, it does. It just I've seen people almost, come to tears. They get tears in their eyes because they haven't had a compliment like that for a little while. Things have maybe been tough, or they just didn't understand the language, or it just and then it just creates this conversation starter that isn't about like where do you come from or what do you do or who are, what are your qualifications. It's just like, hey, person, I see you. I'm a person too. And let me give you this little thing that might seem a little bit silly because there's no silliness in the corporate world, right? Or in your own business. We're all very serious people, which is kind of wild, right? Because we all know how it ends. So we
Mm.
should probably have some fun along the way. And that's why I do it. It does have it has my details on the back. I need to change the colors, but it is a business card. But I don't do it for that. I do it for the compliments. And I've had people who are like, I put my jacket on and your compliment was in it that you gave me 6 months ago. And it just made me so happy. And that to me is like amazing. So I just love doing it. And for me, I'm a creative person. And so that's what I just came up with this idea. It's all about just bringing joy to people's life. That's, when we feel joy, we just operate differently.
I can imagine.
We just buzz differently. And if I can shift someone into a different mode, like job done.
Oh, I can imagine because when like you said, when we meet people, we size each other up, even though we don't want to admit, we're judging based on
Yeah,
the lens that we think we know about that person, and we could be
yeah,
completely wrong. You know what I
yeah,
mean? You wouldn't know exactly what is actually going on with that person, where they've
yeah,
been, what experiences they can share, and what cards they might give you that might make up your day. So it's things like that. Now, you've got a program that you take people through, and I think it's called the expansion program. Is that
expansion. Yeah,
right?
perfect. The expansion
Cool,
program.
cool.
Yeah,
How does
yeah,
that work, and what can the participants expect to gain from it?
yeah. Yeah, thank you. So it's a great program. It's a 6-week program. And I developed it because people would come in and they would sort of say, like, oh, I don't really know what it is, but I just don't feel great. And like, or, life is shit and everything's bad. And it can take a while in individual counseling to figure out like what's actually going on. And so sometimes we can take a few months to get to that stage. And then we can do the work from there, right? And I was like, let me see if I can do something that helps people figure out a little bit quicker, like what's actually going on. And so I developed this journal that goes along with the program. So 6 weeks, you get 3 check ins with me. You get this journal, and it's designed to with a bit of repetition, and it does what I call emotional data collection, right? So we all know data is like king, right? We all know how important data is. We wouldn't make a business decision without it, but we don't apply that to ourselves. We don't really we think we understand ourselves, but we don't really. And so the program is designed to bring up things. And so you're writing things down for this 6 weeks. So then we can start to be like, oh, this thing keeps coming up for you on this day at this time. Maybe it's that thing rather than the whole life being terrible. Maybe it's just that one thing, and we can work on there. Or have you thought about that? And it actually happens pretty quickly, because once people are writing things down, they start to see patterns, or I can start to quickly reflect them back to them. And the journal is designed in a way that you can use it however you want. If you want to write in a different language, you can. If you want to draw pictures, you absolutely can. The journal is for the participant. It's not for me. And so it's something that they can bring, this emotional data that they bring to the session with me. So at the first of the 6 weeks, we have a session. We go through, we try and see where you are. Midway point, we start to look at this data a little bit. And then at the 6 week point, we look at it again. So people then can either decide if they're that great, I have learned what I needed to learn. This has really got me thinking. Thank you so much. Take care. Or they can say, hey, I think I want to come back and dive into some of these things a little bit deeper. Also, there's some things that people are like, I know this is a thing. I don't really want to talk about it. And I go, that's no problem. That's fine. If you don't want to talk about it, it's fine. You know what the consequences are. So either you're okay with those, or we want to talk about it. Like, it's totally fine. It's really all just designed for you to get to know yourself better. That's it. It's not for me. It's for you. It's 6 weeks. That's it. It's quite quick. But that attention, that writing in your journal regularly really helps to speed up that process and to give yourself some distance. So it's like your whole life isn't terrible. It's just this one thing or a couple of things that are happening. And the process is so much more quicker for people, and they really find out what's actually going on. You know, you can think like maybe it's just because I'm new, or it's just because of the new job that I'm feeling bad. Often we'll discover that maybe it wasn't the new job. Actually, this thing has happened at my 3 other jobs as well. So there is something to look into here. It's not going to go away next week.
Absolutely, because if you know yourself, you can then extrapolate what you can control and what you cannot control, and see how you can actually approach that. Because most of the things, obviously, it might just be, yeah, like you say, systematic, cultural, and things of that nature. And if you can then say, okay, everything else is fine, it may just be this part here, then it could be things that would work like that. Now, what would be the best way that people can start doing doodles with you there in their journals?
Yeah, best way, people follow me on LinkedIn. I'm super active on there. Visit my website. And if people want to start it, this isn't, they don't have to come through me. If you just want to get your diary and start writing some things down, you'll start to see something. Just write it down. You don't need to analyze it. Analyze it in 6 weeks. But don't write it down today and be like, oh, God, that must be my problem. No, you need some, just like data, right, that tells you anything. You need some of it to make a pattern. If you've only got one day, it's not a pattern, right? But if you want to, write something down yourself. The helpfulness through going to a professional like me is that I can see the stuff that you don't see or you don't want to see. So that's the difference.
I like the whole pattern recognition thing, because it could be something that happens only on a Saturday at 3 p.m.
Yeah.
And maybe that's run about the time you and your mates at home would have started connecting and having a drink, and you're not having that. So small things like that might actually be
totally
niggling behind the scenes, stuff like that.
Absolutely.
So many people I'd not want to use this word, but for lack of a better term, and kind of spoiled for choice now, maybe to go German or English. But so many people are in denial. Like, you would come over here and you think, you know what? Like you said, hey, I'm supposed to be enjoying this. I'm supposed to be having a good time. And then they actually just sweep everything under the rug so much that the rug is now lumpy in spaces because so
Yeah.
much stuff is
And
being.
you're like, what lump? I don't see a lump. There's no lump.
What lump? Right. At what point would you sort of start strongly suggesting that people, hey, start looking into, visiting people like yourself? Because also in our culture, it's a big, big stigma to see something, to see people about something. You know what I mean? So
Absolutely.
one of those
Yeah.
things that there has to be some sort of real psychological safety around the effect. But if somebody's walking along the road and then they keep stumbling on one piece of thing, wouldn't you want to just dig it out so that tomorrow when you come back,
Yeah.
it's a smooth road?
Exactly. If you had a broken arm, you go get it fixed. You're going to walk around with a broken arm and be like, oh, well, I'm fine. And everybody's like, oh, see his broken arm, like
See the
you
bone
go and
sticking
get
out.
it fixed. Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh, I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. So no, you're not fine. But it's the same with mental health. Like if people aren't ready to come, they're not ready to come. And so that is tricky. But the biggest thing is if it doesn't feel good to you in any capacity, if you don't feel happy, if you know that something's not quite right, that is the time to go. Because if you are waiting until it's so bad that it's affecting your relationships, it's affecting your job, you are, you're on your last warning at work, when things are really bad and you come and seek some help, then it's going to take a long time and a lot of work, a lot of work. I see people all the time who think, oh, but it's not really that bad. Like, and other people have it worse than me. And we're not talking about other people. We're talking about you. And if you feel bad, you feel bad. Like, that is it. I can't tell anybody when they're feeling bad. Obviously, there's signs, I can see it, but it's up to people. Like, if you just feel, it's enough to feel a little bit off, just like you would go to the GP, go see somebody, a counselor. There is no woo woo here, right? There is nothing about people, like, there's no voodoo going on. There's nothing. It's literally just helping you with your mental health. It's like if you needed a little step to reach the top shelf, you would get the shelf, you would get the step. It's exactly the same. If you're feeling a little bit off, go get some help. Just go talk to someone. You can always like call and chat to me and for a free call. Like it's not like if you're not quite sure, I can have a little chat and be like, hey, I reckon that maybe you just need some time, or let's have, maybe have a few sessions. But really the biggest indicator is how you feel. And I know it's tricky because a lot of us are really removed from our feelings. So we don't even know when we're feeling bad. We just don't really know. So that is tricky. And that is when you need to really, really, really treat yourself like you would your beautiful daughter. You would, if she was crying, you would give her a hug and you would say, my darling, I adore you. What can daddy do for you? How can I help you? And you need to do that same for yourself because we're all just human and we all need support at some time. In fact, all the time. And you don't even have to feel bad to come and work with me. You can feel any way you want. You can be happy and we'll still find something. Being a counselor myself doesn't make me immune to any of this. I have my own counselor. I love talking about this. I think every week I go and see somebody just to talk about what's going on for me because there's always some programming that we can examine. Always.
Absolutely. I quite like that. And obviously, I can see with the excitement that you have, you're not afraid that somebody would watch this video and be like, nah. I worked with her and it didn't work. Maybe you can share with us maybe a specific success story from somebody that you've worked with, just really highlighting the transformative power of your counseling methods.
Yeah, and look, I'll keep it high level because one of the things that, that I guarantee people is that everything is private and confidential, and I don't tell other people's stories. And the reason why nobody ever says it doesn't work is because I'm not doing a thing. I'm not trying to do something for you that either works or not, right? It's up to people to do their own work to decide if they want to work. That being said, I've worked with somebody who, I mentioned this before, who came from a culture where they didn't ask for promotions. They would just do the work and they would get recognized. And they had been, for a couple of years, they were still sitting at exactly the same role, and they knew how much more they could do. And so we came and we had a chat, and we started to explore these ideas that they were holding around hierarchy, and how it was quite rude to say something to your boss. And so I just helped them to walk through this and see how it was, and to have a conversation with their boss. And it went great. They were able to make a plan, and now they're on track to the promotion. If they haven't got it already, then it's definitely coming in early 2024. And it was all really we just needed to look at some stories that this person was holding and reframe those stories into something that was powerful for them. And it was so helpful.
Absolutely. I quite like that because we're missing out on all these opportunities just because of things that we think mean the world when in actual fact they're inhibiting us. And I think it was Einstein that said something along the lines that everything that we are usually afraid is going to happen usually never happens anyway. So it will be in your best interest to really yeah, bite the bullet and go and seek help because you don't know what you don't know. Now, would you be okay with us putting your details in our show notes so that people can maybe start on that journey? Because I can guarantee that a lot of people watching this, especially maybe people that would have been, a migrant themselves, are starting to warm up to maybe, getting an understanding of what else is out there, because so many people when they come over here, I think they have what's called a CA, which is a crisis of anticipation. They would have expected that things will probably be hunky-dory, different.
Yeah,
You still got to work, you still got to show
yeah,
up, you still got to apply
yeah.
yourself. And half of the people that I end up talking to would have been top level executives in their jobs, wherever they were working. And maybe the first thing they get to do when they come to Australia is work in a call center. So that whole discrepancy in and of itself, a lot of people can't, manage. So if you would allow us to.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a bit soul destroying, You think that it's you think that you're the reason, but it's absolutely not true. It really isn't. It's not about you. It's just the place that you are and the things that you're going through. But nothing's personal.
Yeah, I quite like that. And I quite love your life story as well, because it gives us so many touch points of reference of, basically who you started off as and how you navigated through all of this. Now, if you were just reflecting on your own personal journey there, Katrina, what sort of advice would you give to your younger self, knowing what you know now about the sort of growth and success that you have actually managed to achieve, and you're actually helping others be, do, and have a happier existence as well?
Yeah, I think I've definitely been in that hustle culture, you got to do more, do the things, and like it's all about me, and I just have to prove myself. And the advice I would just give myself is you have time. It's okay. Like, just keep going. Just show up every day. Uh, and to be honest, I wouldn't listen to it at that age. But what I might listen to is if I just told myself to just have more fun.
Abs-
Like, everything you do should be enjoyable to some point. I'm not saying that everything should be roses and joy and like happy, but everything should feel like, yeah, this is life. This is great. When you're feeling that grind, it's too much. Just back off. Go easier.
Absolutely.
you're just a little human doing like none of us even asked to be born prosper. And here we are doing the best we can. Right.
Like that. Nobody else is before. You know, it's yeah, it's quite remarkable. And I like how you're giving people permission, first of all, to be themselves and to literally go out and see who they possibly can be. And I think reframe is apropos in how you have come up yourself and how you've reframed your career and helping other people be, do, and have. Now you've been a
Yeah,
paparazzi.
absolutely fair. I have to say one more thing, but that is a big thing in migration, right? It's like we need you, and when I say we, I'm speaking Australia wide. I am the Prime Minister right now. We need you. We need all of your skills, your unique, wonderful, amazing skills. We need them because you don't need to migrate to Australia to not do what you were meant to do. No one benefits then. No one benefits. You're not happy, the country's not doesn't get your amazing skills. We really need you to bring all of it. We want it. We want it.
Absolutely. I would then maybe say to the Prime Minister right now, I really hope a lot of people are listening. They just should do something about the weather, though, especially in Melbourne.
I'll try my best. Yeah, I just get that's not my role actually. I think that's someone else's role. So, but I've sent them a memo.
Otherwise, if the weather was good, I don't think anyone wouldn't put in their best foot forward. Now, okay, so Katrina, you've been a paparazzi and now you shrink. What's next?
Who knows? Who knows? Isn't that a mate? Like, who knows? How exciting! I don't know. Guess to say that it'll always be about people and just like about love and but like who knows? How cool.
I think you're also book.
Oh, my partner tells me that. Yeah, it's filed back on in there, you know. Yeah, it's gonna come out sometime when it's ready. Yeah.
Absolutely. And as soon as it's ready, I would want you to pick the Online Prosperity Show to be the place that launches that book because
Yeah, awesome.
I love your story. I love what you're doing. Especially, I would have been the person that would have needed your expertise at some point. And like you said, it doesn't necessarily mean where you're at in life. I could actually just reach out and yeah, just have a chat and see what else
Yeah.
is next. Because sometimes you think you've peaked, but there could be more. You know what I mean? Human potential
Yeah.
is so much, unbelievable. The things that people can do is so amazing, and especially if you've done the hardest thing, which is leave everything that you've ever known to come to a place that nobody
Yeah.
knows who you are. And usually some of the people usually live in a city that's the size of a box, and if
Yeah,
nobody
right.
knows your name, then I think,
Right.
like you say, Katrina, they're doing a disservice. Now I can't thank you enough for, first of all,
Thank you.
the energy and just the reframe that we now have, around moving into a country and what you can do, especially not giving people business cards, but to actually just compliments. Because if I tell you, to all the events that I end up going, I just collect
Oh,
business cards.
wow.
But can you imagine if that is all compliments, and um
Right.
that would make the world a whole better place.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. You're so welcome. You're
Thank you
so
so
welcome. It's
much.
all worth it to see that smile. Definitely.
Absolutely. And there you have it, folks. A huge, 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 massive thank you to Katrina James for sharing her wisdom and insights with us today. And if you found value in this episode, and I'm sure you did, don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more incredible interviews and insights. And I really encourage you to just go and rewatch this fantastic episode now so that you can really take notes and put yourself on the straight and narrow, because so many of us, especially migrants, when we show up here, we are like a deer in headlights. we get really confused as to what the next step to take should be. And I think if you just take heed to what Katrina has said, you can maybe head on to her website, and I'll put all the links below. And you can also catch up with her on LinkedIn, just so that you can see what she's up to and how she's helping others thrive. Now, remember, the stories that we tell help us create our own world. And I think Katrina is here to change yours. Until next time, stay prosperous. Bye for now.